Well, hello, everyone, LA audience and world at large audience. Welcome back to Gridspace. Gridspace's 2024 IAP lecture series. We're on lecture 8 today, and I am Cooper Johnson, voice user experience designer or conversation design leader at Gridspace. And I'm going to be talking to you about LLMs, language, and labor. So things will be a little different this week. We've seen some good lectures so far, all of them, pretty mathy and engineering oriented. I thought they were all great. Hope you did too. But if you tuned in earlier this week from my colleagues Cole and Foulon's presentation, you know that we're in the middle of Language Week, and that is going to continue with this lecture. But we have a little bit of a different spin on the proceedings today. So as a non-engineer, a designer who benefits from the tools that all my brilliant engineering colleagues make, today this lecture will be about language. It is Language Week. But I also want to talk about the benefit of LLMs on work. We're well past a year into, let's say, the general population's familiarity with, or growing familiarity with LLMs, generative AI. So calling it a year in, where are we right now? Like, can LLMs help us do very helpful work? Are they delivering on the promise that the world thought they showed back in, what was that, November of 2022? And I think yes. The answer is a resounding yes within certain contexts. So I'll be talking about language and work and in those in conjunction. So that brings me to what I would, maybe the true title of today's lecture: how can LLMs assist with words work? Or human-computer solidarity in language labor. That's my favorite. So when I say, can LLMs help with real work, that sounds a little bit like gatekeeping. But I think it is necessary to state that LLMs can actually help with work that has, relevant real-world applications that's beneficial to human beings and not really at the expense of any human beings. So I think what we've seen is that LLMs in general can be used for work that you either devalue, you don't want to pay a human being to do it, work that you don't care about, maybe it's frivolous, or maybe there are no stakes, why not let the computer write it for you, or ideally, somewhat ironically, work that you just can't be bothered to do and is kind of below your skills or your competence level as a human being to do. And that last area is where LLMs really shine. In the space of conversation design, particularly for voice, I designed for Gridspace's voice agent Grace. If you're familiar with Grace, there used to be so much work that we would have to do, just mountains of busy work to climb through to get a bot that was remotely capable of talking to a human being, unbound creativity and unique needs out of 8 billion people, things that they just themselves needed to get done. So LLMs are delivering on taking away the stuff that competent human beings who have better things to do would rather not spend their time on. A lot of backfill, a lot of what-if scenarios, a lot of just tedium to make things just acceptably robust. So this is a depiction of how I regard humans and computers interacting via the technology associated with generative AI today. And you might also notice no AI art involved here. This is a photograph taken by a human being with the proper credit given. Okay, so how are we going to look at how LLMs are delivering on the promise and being helpful to the work, specifically of making voice agents that are able to help other human beings? We'll do that by kind of tracing the thought process from a very high level of how a conversational voice agent gets designed. This is not going to be a deep dive on how to design for a voice agent. We'll talk about that some other day. Really, I just want to track kind of the seed of how you think about language at the highest level when you're designing alongside an LLM. And then we'll take a step back at every step of the way to consider what the benefits are to getting knowledge work done that were impossible and just not available to us before we had LLMs working side by side with us every day. So the path as it goes, and we'll get into more detail as we go along, We start at the most basic level, foundational conversational ability. And the associated technology there is NLG, natural language generation. And I'll talk more about all of these, but the foundational conversational ability is what a designer, a conversation designer, can trust the bot to be able to speak. How much conversation just the bot product out of the box can handle talking to human beings with no special knowledge given and no particular directive on what to do. Knowing roughly how the bot interacts as a conversationalist with no input is basically where design begins. And then we'll move on to kind of the meat of this sandwich, the knowledge base, the underlying technology being retrieval augmented generation. That's where we start thinking about what specialized language do we want to put at this bot's fingertips. So when it comes up, or when we're into the unique circumstances of any given conversation with a human being, what can the bot draw on to have a better, stronger personality, be more relatable to a human, be more empathetic, and also just to be very well informed and very precise in the knowledge that it's able to share. And then we'll walk the tightrope very end. Kind of coaching is unique to Gridspace, but the underlying technology there is few-shot prompting or in-context learning. And I'll actually do a little demo there because that's the best way to show you that coaching kind of ties up the whole process. We have trust in the bot's conversational ability, and we gave it specialized language to make it very robust. Coaching is the alignment of all the work we've done up until that point and refining, okay, when the bot's conversational ability meets the specialized language we give it, is it actually performing? Or when I hear it, when I see the bot actually doing the job that I gave it to, is there any feedback that I would like to give to the bot to make it even better as we go along? So those are the steps we'll follow, the high-level processes of an LLM enabling better language work as we design our bots. All right, so into the conversation basics. Whatever bot, whatever digital persona you are working with, knowing roughly what it's going to do, or roughly what it can do with almost no input is very, very critical. That's kind of just like checking if the bot has a pulse. And I'll use the comparison to an intro-level or an entry-level human worker compared to a bot a lot in this talk. But basically, knowing how the bot operates when it is not given a script of any kind is very similar to just checking that your new coworker actually understands English and showed up for work that day, or understands whatever language you're working in. So here's an example. This is a transcript of dialogue that's very plausibly from a virtual agent that has almost no instruction given to it. Suppose the virtual agent is asking for last four social security number, very common thing we see our agents asking for identification purposes. Something goes wrong on the human side. Truck went by, they couldn't hear Grace, they couldn't hear the virtual agent, so they need to hear that request again. This response by the virtual agent is the kind of thing that LLMs have blessed us with these days, where conversation designers no longer have to write in the kind of error recovery. We do not have to manually specify on this exact question, if something goes wrong, do this. And not just on this question, but maybe make out multiple branches for like if this specific thing went wrong. No longer have to do that. I'm no longer kept awake at night worrying about having to write infinity branches to make the bot robust anymore. The bot can do this on its own. And hearing this enough times, understanding roughly what the bot's cadence is, how the bot answers questions with very little previous input, knowing what you can depend on it for is kind of the foundational layer of building a good bot. If you know what you're starting from intuitively, you've kind of internalized the bot's just natural conversation abilities based on the LLM that it sits atop, then that's going to inform the rest of your design. What needs to be shored up and what you can count on the bot to do. So what are the benefits to work of really internalizing the bot's abilities as a conversational partner in this case? Streamlined bot design. We eliminate those branches that I was talking about before, where at any given juncture in a bot conversation, you'd have to account for things going wrong manually, and you probably don't even have time to provide that coverage to your entire bot. because really the complexity is basically exponential. So now we can design more for what's called the happy path, not just in conversation design, but in a lot of design disciplines, which is basically the unobstructed route through a conversation if everything's going well. That means instead of looking like the root system for an entire forest, the decision tree that drives a bot, kind of, I don't know, what's something that's less spidery than that? I don't know, a fork. Let's go with the fork. So streamlined bot design. You can see all of your bot. You can more easily understand holistically what the bot does because we're not drawing all these crazy branches anymore. And in terms of work hours, that is going to save everyone money. Because no matter who's designing a bot, they're going to spend way less time into making a great bot simply because they don't have to do all that branching. So you get a nice bot asset out that does not have all these crazy paths, and you get it much cheaper, both in terms of worker pay and in opportunity cost, to be honest. Okay, so this is definitely the most interesting aspect of working alongside LLMs in voice bot creation today. And that's the knowledge base. And again, the underlying technology is retrieval augmented generation, or RAG. And doing a close reading of what RAG means, we know that the bot has generative conversational capabilities, which we just talked about. And now we are going to improve or augment that generative dialogue by giving the bot something to reference. So if you've never worked with a knowledge base before, knowledge base is basically more relevant information, topical information, specific information that's going to be prioritized over basically the training data that went into the bot's LLM. So stuff in the knowledge base gets top priority for making your bot competent. And where language comes into this is that there are basically two special opportunities within knowledge bases that we've learned basically over the past 18 months. Knowledge bases, going back to comparing the bot to a new human worker fresh off the streets, entry level to the task they've been assigned. If we optimize the knowledge base for human readability, that is a very effective proxy for supporting the LLM. What I mean by that is that, while computers can read a massive wall of text, many chapters, thousands of pages long, and nominally be an expert on something, they could be the world's leading expert, at least on the face of it, on a certain topic that someone calls in about, that's really ultimately not that helpful. It turns out that if we structure our knowledge bases, assuming that a human just fresh off the street is reading them and needs in the next 2 minutes to be able to succeed at a task, then it turns out that question and answer pairs are probably going to be the most effective format most of the time. Other formats like bullets, numbered lists, those are going to help as well. Basically, any formatting that you can put into the collective knowledge that you want to assign to a bot, the better the formatting for human eyes, the better the retrieval ability of the bot is going to be. So that's very nice that it's emerged that way. It does mean that we need to put a little more care into our knowledge base, but that does pay dividends, because what we put into our knowledge base is reference language. It is the reference materials for the bot, but the reference language has an extreme amount of influence on the bot itself. There are concepts in conversation design called persona and personality. They're topics for a different day, and they're also pretty controversial about how much they matter. But we no longer really have to be concerned with injecting too much persona into our main bot, into the design that drives our bot down its happy path, prior to anyone asking any questions that are going to necessitate the bot pulling information from the knowledge base. So what can we do with the reference language? We can write question and answer pairs in a particular voice, knowing that if this question is asked by a caller, we can be a little more happy, a little more supportive. Like, if someone's asking questions about a newborn baby, we can give the bot language that's, playful, very happy this person had a baby. Or if someone's calling in about paying, a life insurance policy, paying out, we can direct Grace's dialogue there to be much more formal, much more sympathetic and understanding. That's the kind of thing that takes a huge amount of forethought and work and a lot of commitment, possibly not just from the bot designer, but anyone who's a stakeholder in an organization for what, the bot as an employee for the organization. So putting that into the bot spec, into the playbook that runs the bot, is actually a pretty fraught idea. It might make a lot of people unhappy. But if we shift our language in such a way that persona is kind of dictated by what is necessary to pull from the knowledge base to interact with the human for some situation that's unfolding or some extra information the human is given, we remain a lot more agile with our bots. The main bot can be like very buttoned up and business-like, just to like get through a task, because that might work for 90% of the people who call in. And then we can offload some like surprise persona that emerges as it's needed when people ask questions, specific questions that trigger recall from the knowledge base. And then the other thing we can do, here's a question and answer pair. And honestly, I do this one. This one's kind of implicit in whether we're shaping the bot's persona by what's in the knowledge base and any other type of question as well. So this is kind of pervasive. What we can do with our well-organized knowledge base is that we can arrange the language to be optimized for the modality of voice. We only work in voice here in Gridspace. And giving the bot dialogue for the modality of voice is basically identical functionally to the discipline of writing for radio. You know, writing for you know, like nonfiction podcasts or writing news reports on NPR, that kind of thing. There's a certain economy of words that we need to avoid overburdening the person who's just listening. And we also want to put, we always want to strategize about where we put information in regards to an utterance as a whole. So to demonstrate that, let's look at this is a bad Q&A pair. Let's imagine that this was like scraped from some website, put into our knowledge base as a starting point. Someone asked the business that the bot represents, are you open on Memorial Day? Maybe this is website copy that worked well enough there. And the response is, our clinics are open 365 days per year to service urgent medical needs, which may arise at any time. Decent marketing language, very bad for Grace to say over the phone. Let's break it down. We'll build it anew so I can show you what I mean. Let's strike that entirely. Let's start. Are you open on Memorial Day? Yes. Remember I talked about economy of words? Let's get to the actual answer first and supplement it with anything else following that. Yes, we are open. You notice we're kind of in a descending priority order here, but the priority order will sneak back upwards towards the end. On Memorial Day. So yes, we could end it there. Yes, we are open on Memorial Day. What we call there is reinforcement of the initial answer. So yes is most important, Memorial Day is second most important, therefore we put it at the end. You don't want to bury information when you're writing for voice anywhere in the middle of your sentence. And typically landing on it is what the human who's interacting with the bot will remember best. So, but now we have some supplementary information. Maybe we're gonna make this answer a little better. In fact, is what you might call a signpost in conversation design. It's just a little bit of filler, but when you can only hear Grace and there's no transcript of the conversation in front of you, you're not looking at Grace, not looking at any not doing any lip reading to back up your understanding. These little signposts are hints that more stuff is coming. They kind of locate you within it. So where are we located within this utterance? We're past the answer we needed most, but now we're getting into some helpful supplementary information, hopefully. So our clinics remain open every day of the year. You might notice I cut out the stuff about urgent medical needs arising at any time. But what have we done here? Top to bottom, we've written yes, and we can end on that. We are open on Memorial Day. So there's our rich answer, and then a supplementary answer that ends on every day of the year, which hopefully will reinforce to someone that not just Memorial Day, but every other federal holiday or religious holiday, we're going to be open. So that's how you can leverage a knowledge base to be unique to the modality of voice. And it's really important because otherwise you're going to have a really, really terrible time interacting with a bot that was thoughtlessly designed around basically being a paper instruction manual. That does not translate very well. All right, so the knowledge base, we've seen that we can influence Grace in two different ways. We can make Grace, give Grace a different personality by choosing basically word choice within her language and putting emotion words in there as well. And we can also make her optimize for speaking to someone over the phone when neither party can see each other. But the other benefits, we have our central repository of preferred language. So in a way, the knowledge base becomes the style guide for how any given bot should speak. If you want to know who this bot is, read a well-organized knowledge base. So that's nice for handing off to someone who maintains the bot, but maybe it wasn't the bot's original creator. Ease of maintenance, like I said, we're not putting in high-stakes emotional content or personality content into the bot itself. We're putting them into the knowledge base. So if we want to change anything about how the bot is perceived by humans it interacts with, we just have to change it in the knowledge base. We don't have to worry about changing our bot and accidentally breaking something, making a regression, undoing something that undoing a change that we made because it performed very well in user testing, that kind of thing. Just go to the knowledge base. Don't worry about derailing the bot. Reduce complexity of bot construction, very similar to how I said with the baseline natural language generation ability, we didn't have to write all these complicated branches out anymore. Having knowledge base answers that you do not have to author into the bot directly also helps with that. And the takeaway consequence is that iterative design cycles are shortened. I've never seen a bot, and I don't ever expect to see a bot that wasn't designed on a cycle. Basically, an internal draft of the bot, make sure that it works well, and then a bot with changes being released to a small subset of the population that could be talking to the bot, and then perhaps more iteration on the design for a soft launch of the bot to the entire population, and then a hard launch after more iteration when the bot is fully deployed, fully relied upon to do business for the organization that's commissioned it. So shortening the iterative design cycles mean that you just get a bot talking to people, real people doing real good in the world more quickly. And we can also adjust it on the fly. I think you get that. Okay, so coaching is, not as meaty a topic as the knowledge base, but is very cool. And like I said, I'm going to go walk out on the tightrope and actually do a coaching session for you, because it's going to be easier for you to understand what the benefit of coaching, which is powered by few-shot prompting or in-context learning, depending on how you slice it. It's just going to be easier to understand if you see it in action. So let me stop sharing for a second. Talks amongst yourselves while I do sensitive computer work. Nice. There it is. Okay, so a note on audio real quick. What a coaching session is basically an editable, post facto editable interaction with a bot that we've made. So I'm going to be talking to our Grace bot here. If you can't hear it, if you're one of the remote audience and you can't hear it, I'm sorry, that it should play through my lav mic okay. But if you can't hear, you will also see the transcript on the screen. So let's talk to a bot, and then I'll coach it, and I'll tell you what that's all about.
Hello, this is Grace speaking. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, are you open on Memorial Day?
Yes, we are open on Memorial Day. In fact, our clinics remain open every day of the year. Do you have any other questions?
Sure. Are you open on Christmas Eve?
Okay. Yes, we are open on Christmas Eve. In fact, our clinics remain open every day of the year. Do you have any other questions?
No, that's all I needed. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thanks for talking with me. Have a great day.
Cool. So I hope everyone heard that or read it. Let's get into our few-shot prompting now. Let's look at what coaching can actually do. And just to remember, we've talked about how Grace and voice bots have a baseline conversational ability, and they can pull from knowledge bases, which we've artfully set up to make them more pleasant to interact with and generally better informed. But when those two things come together in practice, the LLM has some leeway to make its own decisions. And you might just not quite like, something may have been lost in translation. You might not quite like how your virtual agent is operating. Well, that's on us. Let's gently teach Grace how to be better. You might see, here's our familiar Memorial Day question. I'm happy with the dialogue that I gave Grace, which you might notice she flawlessly pulled from the knowledge base here. But I don't really like, when I ask the call-out question, are you open on Christmas Eve? I don't really like that the Memorial Day, the same language that was applied to Memorial Day is applied here. Can we make this more Christmassy, perhaps? So what I'll do is we see Grace's speech bubble, and anytime that Grace was improvising is just straight out of her baseline conversational ability, or by pulling from the knowledge base, which counts as improv here, we can correct that. So now I'm actually doing some coaching. I'm okay with yes, we are open on Christmas Eve. But what I want not to do, there are the holidays. I'm just writing new dialogue on the fly here. The holidays are a shockingly dangerous time with lots of poorly timed accidents and illnesses. So we're here for you every day of the holiday season. And why do we write this dialogue? Why did I choose it? Maybe just to justify why this clinic goes the extra mile and decides to be open 24/7, 365, and prevent someone from asking, like, but it's Christmas, why are you open? So this is a better answer than Memorial Day. Gives more detail that we might not push too hard on why someone keeps their business open on Memorial Day, but Christmas Eve deserves its own answer. So I'll save that, and we can see that we've made a change to this, and the studying means that the bot is actually internalizing this feedback on its future behavior that I've given it. The bot did the right thing by pulling this exactly from the knowledge base, but now that I see it in action, I just want things to go a little differently. And I don't even really have to change, I do not have to change the knowledge base here. This will not make a correction to the knowledge base. It just tells Grace that, okay, but when the subject is Christmas Eve, you know that we're open every day of the year, but when the subject is Christmas Eve, let's go a little bit deeper with it. And Christmas Eve might not come up all that often, might come up only in the month of December. So kind of just this very specific feedback on that topic is probably sufficient. If Grace is answering a question every day, every time that someone calls in, you might want to go to the knowledge base to really ingrain that information if it turns out to be the most common question Grace asked. But just by making her better on her feet, by giving her different language in her repertoire to use, and very specific scenarios that are defined that only a human being would recognize, that's really what the power of coaching is. So, hope everyone thought that was cool. Should I edit more dialogue? What do you think? We're good? Okay. I can make Grace say something really weird, but spicy language is in last week's lecture. If you all didn't see Colin Fulong's lecture, go check it out. It's good. Okay, so look back at coaching. Really, really, really helpful for kind of tying it all together. No less or more important than understanding Grace's baseline conversational abilities or the knowledge base, but definitely the secret sauce that kind of brings it all together. And beyond those two things that I mentioned, you can see here that we have is scripted dialogue. Scripted dialogue, is something that is actually baked into the bot. When we've specified things that the bot must say every time, just because that's the task that it's doing, we also are able to kind of orchestrate better between Grace's baseline LLM abilities and the retrieval augmented generation and scripted dialogue when we do coaching. Because we see all of those things put together, arranged from a decision tree, which definitely might not go down every branch on every conversation. Probably might just need straight down one side for most people, but other people need more help, might go straight down the left side. where we have Grace providing additional abilities. We don't know what conversations are possible. Basically, infinite variety is possible in these conversations with bots. But when we do coaching, we can see how a particular conversation, especially if we tried to make it a really spicy one or challenging one for Grace, we see how a particular conversation came together. And when we can see all those components, it might pop out to us as designers where Grace needs to be shored up in ways that we couldn't have anticipated until we saw an actual conversation going. So that's what the top layer of creative control is. Basically, you've made your bot design and you've put it out into the world to some degree. And you just need to tie it all up and put a bow on it. See when rubber meets the road, how Grace is doing in weird scenarios. Coaching gives you the ability to kind of, patch that all up and make Grace, patch it up, polish up Grace, make a really successful bot that you can be proud of. So as you can imagine, in previous rule-based dialogue systems, that was not the case. Grace was so rigidly defined, or all bots really were so rigidly defined by what they could do or must do. The ability of just giving Grace what is the effect of like nudging your coworker and giving them a quick tip, some insider knowledge about how to do their job better, absolutely impossible. It would have involved going under the hood and basically ripping the bot apart to be able to give it some more flexibility, or to give it some nuance, and then that nuance would be baked into the bot and would kind of cease becoming nuance. So that was a very high-level view of how bots are helping, LLMs are helping me do language-oriented work in this year of the future, 2024. I will pause for questions. We're going to get back into my coworkers a little bit, but just to recap, the arc of the work that LLMs are helping me so much with these days, and everyone else who builds Grace bots on their own, I encourage all of you to do it if you've never done it before. So we start with understanding Grace's abilities without us telling her anything about herself or what to do. And then we bake in the world of possibilities into Grace's knowledge base, where she can draw on learned experience we've put at her fingertips. And then at the end, kind of as tying up the design all together, making it very pretty, we have coaching, where we can do the very fine level adjustments on what our bots do and how they behave and interact with the world. So before we revisit lecture 7, both here or from the remote audience, do we have any questions? Yes, Cole.
Wondering what aspects of this work are like basically like a future LLM improvement. Like I can imagine that in the future LLMs might be able to like summarize website copy, in a nice speech-oriented way. What do you think conversation design would look like if LLMs, become increasingly better?
So the question, sorry, for the remote audience is, what aspects of, basically this design philosophy are future LLM proof, especially if LLMs are trained to automate more of the human creative work that I've described to you here today? And honestly, I think it'll kind of just continuously take half steps. It'll take steps 50% of the way towards, the finish line. The finish line being like a bot could do all of this by itself. Because even if LLMs get better, I think people who care about language can like identify the stink of LLMs on like auto-generated copy a lot. The more that you read, like if I asked an LLM to try to synthesize 100 question and answer pairs from knowledge about a company so that I could populate my knowledge base, by 20 questions in, I think it would be really, really obvious that the human touch was not present there. So it will get better, but I think the human review is still going to be pretty necessary, even as things improve. So maybe not in my lifetime would things get so good that you could really trust the machine to automate itself so well. Does that answer your question?
I mean, at some point, I guess you need to put in your business specific information somehow.
Yeah, and to get back to the, the metaphor of treating the bot just like an entry-level employee who's going to receive all their training on the job, companies do, like plenty of companies worldwide do basically have identity documents for new agents. Like, surrender your selfhood while you're in this chair helping people on the phone and just be yet another person in our army who works to this optimized kind of phone persona. And that's fine. Plenty of phone agents are really happy to do that. And I think it's actually a good exercise. Like, you rarely need to make a creative decision. This is basically spelled out for you about how to conduct yourself as a representative of this company in a lot of different circumstances. And I think those guidelines will continue to be shaped by humans for humans. And just because we can apply them to a bot also doesn't mean that, the original source isn't humans thinking about how to treat other people, both just as nice people, but also, leveraging psychology to be better customer service representatives. Anything else? Anything from the gallery?
How to emphasize, not emphasize certain words while she sounds so close to an actual face. Was that all given in the training data, or were there other training techniques to make that happen?
Okay, boiling that question down, why does Grace sound so good, and why does she place emphasis most of the time in the right place in a sentence? A lot of facets to answering that. The training data for Grace, her speech model, was all done, what we'd say, in domain. It was collected as if if the data was like taken directly from an actual contact center. So it wasn't just recordings of someone reading an audiobook trying to make that data inform the voice of a customer service agent. No, it's fictitious customer service agent voice data basically applied to the same domain for Grace. So basically that's a very subtle version of garbage in, garbage out. So we put good stuff in and we got good stuff out by making sure that the training data mirrored what eventually we wanted the type of speech to be. And then there is a lot of dark magic that my engineering colleagues put in. Grace just has very good speech models, so we can't overlook how many hours went into making Grace sound good. And then the third one, most relevant to my talk today, I think, is that part of understanding Grace's baseline conversational ability and her ability to generate appropriate and grammatical responses to interactions with humans is internalizing also how that's going to sound. And it also touches on the kind of writing for radio approach to writing for voice bots that I mentioned, in that the more you can hear Grace in your head, especially knowing what her out-of-the-box functionality is, the better you can write your dialogue. And I've just learned by now maybe to override my own instincts about how like a 2 to 3 sentence utterance should be phrased, because I know if I break it up into some slightly smaller chunks or structure my sentences slightly differently, then they'll just sound better coming out of Grace. So yeah, basically good source data that was relevant to what we wanted it to be in the end, lots of wonderful, brilliant engineering work, and then learning how to paint with Grace as, this color in your palette. Learning how to paint with Grace's voice as this color in your palette. Anything else from the remote audience? All right.
Are you able to chat with the bot or just coach and see what happens if we can get the same question again?
Yes, that is the point of coaching. I'm feeling saucy. I think we can do it again. Okay, so we see here that Grace has studied. So hopefully she's internalized this. It isn't lying to me that she did her homework. We'll start another session.
Hello, this is Grace speaking. Do you have any questions?
Are you open on Christmas Eve?
Uh-huh. Yes, we are open on Christmas Eve. In fact, our clinics remain open every day of the year. Do you have any other questions?
Oh, Grace. Tell me again, are you open on Christmas Eve?
Okay, sure. We are open every day of the year, including Christmas Eve. Do you have any other questions?
No, but we'll be talking later, Grace. So yes, did it underperform there? Yes, but probably just a little bit of a time discrepancy between making that coaching change and possibly the internet here. But we can recoach so that we can verify whether the change stuck. Sometimes you do need to tell Grace twice if you are going up against explicit knowledge-based information. Coaching twice, and maybe with like a slight riff on what I coached earlier. If I give her a different version of "We Stay Open During the Holidays," that's going to be additional training data, and she'll internalize it better. So we stay open through the holidays, through the holiday season, because the winter weather conditions lead to an unfortunate number of accidents at that time of year. So now we have a second coaching example, more reinforcement for Grace. And coaching should never really be done as a single session in a vacuum. It is a good way of checking up on Grace's progress. And maybe 6 months from now, like I've put this bot that answers the phone for a business out into the world, and they've decided they are going to be closed. They're going to be closed on Halloween every year. So we've updated our bot, checking in on Grace to see how she's handling, that she's still handling previous feedback from coaching sessions as we want her to, is just part of the maintenance of the bot. But like I said, I was abutting straight up against instructions in the knowledge base that the clinic is open on Christmas Eve. So not really that surprising that telling Grace a second time with slightly different phrasing to go in depth on why they stay open on Christmas Eve is probably what's necessary. Any other questions? Phil on.
Try to trigger in a different or have like instead of are you yes, why are you, or maybe follow up by asking why are you will that trigger
If it doesn't, I've walked out on a limb enough for one day to try it right now. But the answer is yes, possibly with slightly more coaching. Grace does get a lot of, what's the other term for this call? We have in context learning. Yeah, based on the knowledge base, like really leaning into the fact they're open every day, and then we're giving Grace now 2 examples justifying why they stay open on Christmas Eve. I wouldn't be surprised if within 1 or 2 more sessions, coaching sessions, Grace is able to synthesize the answer. We stay open on Christmas Eve because the holidays are super dangerous. What's that?
Is that what we want? We want Grace to be able to try to use the additional information that was given in the context of are you open on Christmas Eve in a different
Oh, absolutely. And we can also counter coach. If for some reason we didn't want Grace to behave that way, we could do that, see how she responds, and then correct the response. But yeah, I can't see a reason why we wouldn't want Grace to be answered a variation on the question, but why are you open on Christmas Eve? And providing the necessary context, because that makes her a better conversational partner. And like I said, it's just an extension of the work-saving capabilities that LLMs give us. That's just one more thing that I couldn't have anticipated necessarily, that would have been impossible or time consuming to tack straight into the bot's DNA so that it knew to answer that. But yeah, I would absolutely love, the more coaching we give, the more rephrasings or the more like follow-up questions people have, Grace should be able to answer from context. That's what coaching is for. Is that all the questions? Okay. Then, as promised, I think we have, yeah. We are on to lecture 7 revisited. We kind of ran out of time last week. I think where we left off, Cole and Fulong were at each other's throats, debating very different schools of thought about linguistics and bots. So do you guys want to come up?
I think I also have, the audience, lecture 6, exercise solutions. Let me see if I can steal this meeting. Oh, sure. Okay. Good audio? Okay. Yeah, so exercises from Phoebe's lecture that we forgot to present because we were in such a heated debate. So Phoebe asked, how would you imagine giving LLMs access to senses other than sight and sound? And one answer is all you need is an instrument to measure it and a way to embed it. Smell or taste could be a vectorized output from a mass spectrometer. Touch could be based on pressure, electrical sensors, and embedded positionally. Interesting. I don't know how you do like 3D positional embeddings, but curious. Okay. Next. How might you distill signal embeddings such that you reduce the noise and ensure your model attends to the informative parts of the signal? So sometimes there's advantages to allowing it to see the whole signal and choose the important parts. We can also use external feature extraction models to transform a signal into a predetermined feature. Like, I guess, counting ASR is one of those things that just distills the language signal from audio. Multimodal models still operate mostly on images or audio. You provide a snapshot of the modality for context. Sometimes lose information that humans gain from previous context and time variance. Do you think of an example, and how might you address this? An LLM cannot calculate the speed a person is running at from a still image and struggles with time calculations from video. We could input temporal information manually, force it to store episodic memory with temporal tagging. The most reliable way is to still use external tools and have the model act as a tool retriever. I guess like it has a tool to see how much time happened between 2 events or something like this. Okay, so now on to the exercise we forgot to give you. So what is the rule of fucking insertion, and how do we train an LLM model to correctly insert fucking to any word in English, e.g. Massachusetts? So come up with an algorithm to correctly insert fucking to any word. Next, how would you define if an LLM is memorizing a data set? How many parameters would an LLM need for you to be confident it wasn't memorizing a data set? So I guess I will present the answers to this one next time. Thanks, Cooper. Should we get Cooper's thumbnail?
All right, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
Hello, thank you for calling Gridspace's YouTube channel. Did you make sure they liked the video and smash that subscribe button?
Yes, I did.
And ask them to leave any questions or thoughts in the comments. It helps me a ton. Thank you for watching, and if you'd like to talk to me yourself, go to gridspace.com and click on any one of our demos. Thank you, and talk to you soon.
Thank you, Grace.